Chapter number 6 of The Home and the War by Rabindranath Tagore. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Harsh Surana. Nikhil Story 8th. A few days later, my master brought Panchu round to me. His zamindar, it appeared, had fined him 100 rupees and was threatening him with ejectment. For what fault? I inquired. Because, I was told, he has been found selling foreign clothes. He begged and prayed Harish Kundu, his zamindar, to let himself off his stock. Bought with borrowed money, promising faithfully never to do it again. But the zamindar would not hear of it, and insisted on his burning the foreign stuff there and then. If he wanted to be let off, Panchu in his desperation blurted out defiantly, "I can't afford it. You are rich. Why not buy it up and burn it?" This only made Harish Kundu red in the face as he shouted, "The scoundrel must be taught manners. Give him a shoe beating." So poor Panchu got insulted as well as fined. What happened to the cloth? The whole bale was burnt. Who else was there? Any number of people who all kept shouting, "Bande Matram." Sandip was also there. He took up some of the ashes, crying, "Brothers, this is the first funeral pyre lighted by your village in celebration of the last rites of foreign commerce. These are sacred ashes. Smear yourself with them in token of your Swadeshi vow." "Panchu," said I, turning to him, "you must lodge a complaint." "No one will bear me witness," he replied. "None bear witness?" "Sandip." "Sandip?" Sandip came out of his room at my call. "What is the matter?" he asked. "Won't you bear witness to the burning of this man's clothes?" Sandip smiled. "Of course I shall be witness in this case," he said, "but I shall be on the opposite side." "What do you mean?" I exclaimed. "By being a witness on this or that side, will you not bear witness to the truth? Is the thing which happens the only truth? What other truths can there be? The things that ought to happen, the truth we must build up, will require a great deal of untruth in the process. Those who have made their way in the world have created truth, not blindly followed it. And so, I will bear what you people are pleased to call false witness, as they have done who have created empires, built up social systems, found religious organizations. Those who would have ruled do not dread untruths. The shackles of truth are reserved for those who will fall under their sway. Have you not read history? Do you know that in the immense cauldrons where vast political developments are simmering, untruths are the main ingredients? Political cookery on a large scale is doubtless going on, but, oh, I know, you, of course, will never do any of the cooking. You prefer to be one of those down whose throats the hotchpotch which is being cooked will be crammed. They will partition Bengal and say it for your benefit. They will seal the doors of education and call it raising the standard. But you will always remain good boys, snivelling in your corners. We bad men, however, must see whether we can erect a defensive fortification of untruth." "It is no use arguing about these things, Nikhil," my master interposed. "How can they, who do not feel the truth within them, realize that to bring it out from its obscurity into the light is man's highest aim, not to keep on heaping material outside?" Sandeep laughed. "Right, sir," said he. "Quite a correct speech for a schoolmaster. This is the kind of stuff I have read in the books. But in the real world I have seen that man's chief business is the accumulation of outside material. Those who are masters in the art advertise the biggest lies in their business, enter false accounts into their political ledgers with their broadest pointed pens, launch their newspapers daily laden with untruths, and send preachers abroad to disseminate falsehood like flies carrying Palestinian germs. I am humble follower of these great ones. When I was attached to the Congress party, I never hesitated to dilute 10% of the truth with 90% of untruth. And now, merely because I have ceased to belong to that party, I have not forgotten the basic fact that man's goal is not truth but success." "True success," corrected my master. "Maybe," replied Sandeep, "but the fruit of the true success ripens only by cultivating the field of untruth. After tearing up the soil and pounding it into the dust, truth grows by itself like weeds and thorns, and not only worms can expect to get fruit from it." With this he flung out of the room. My master smiled as he looked towards me. "Do you know, Nikhil," he said, I believe Sandip is not irreligious. His religious is of observed size of truth. Like the dark moon, which is still a moon, for all its light has gone over to the wrong side. That is why I assented. I have always had an affection for him. Though we have never been able to agree, I cannot condemn him, even now, though he has hurt me sorely and may yet hurt me more. I have begun to realize that, said my master. I have long wondered how you could go on putting up with him. I have at times even suspected you of weakness. I now see that though you do not rhyme, your rhythm is the same. Fate seemed bent on writing Paradise Lost in blank verse. In my case, so has no use for a rhyming friend, I remarked, pursuing his conceit. But what of Panchu? Resumed my master. You say Harish Kundu wants to eject him from his ancestral holding. Supposing I buy it up and then keep him on as my tenant. And this is fine? How can Zamindar realize that if he becomes my tenant? His burnt bale of cloth. I will procure him another. I should like to see anyone interfering with a tenant of mine for trading as he pleases. I am afraid, sir, interposed Panchu despondently, while you big folk are doing the fighting, the police and the law vultures will merely gather around and the crowd will enjoy the fun. But when it comes to getting killed, it will be the turn of only poor me. Why? What harm? What harm can come to you? They will burn down my house, sir, children and all. Very well, I will take charge of your children, said my master. You may go on with any trade you like. They shan't touch you. That very day I bought up Panchu's holding and entered into formal possession. Then the trouble began. Panchu had inherited the holding of his grandfather as his sole surviving heir. Everybody knew this, but at this juncture an aunt turned up from somewhere. With her boxes and bundles, her rosary and widowed niece, she ensconced herself in Panchu's home and laid claim to a life interest in all he had. Panchu was dumbfounded. My aunt died long ago, he protested. In reply, he was told that he was thinking of his uncle's first wife, but that the former had lost no time in taking to himself a second. But my uncle died before my aunt, exclaimed Panchu, still more mystified. Where was the time for him to marry again? This was not denied, but Panchu was reminded that it had never been asserted that the second wife had come after the death of the first, but the former had been married by his uncle during the latter's lifetime. Not relishing the idea of living with a co-wife, she had remained in her father's house till her husband's death, after which she had got religion and retired to holy Brindaban, whence she was now coming. These facts were well known to the officers of Harish Kundu, as well as to some of his tenants, and if the Zamindar's summons should be peremptory enough, even some of those who had partaken of the marriage feast would be forthcoming. 9th. One afternoon, when I happened to be specially busy, word came to my office that Bimala had sent for me. I was startled. Who did you say had sent for me? I asked the messenger. The Rani mother. The Bara Rani? No, sir. The Chota Rani mother. The Chota Rani. It seemed a century since I had sent for by her. I kept them all waiting there, and went off into the inner apartments. When I stepped into our room, I had another shock of surprise to find Bimala there with a distinct suggestion of being dressed up. The room, which from persistent neglect had latterly acquired an air of having grown absent-minded, had regained something of its old order this afternoon. I stood there silently looking inquiringly at Bimala. She flushed little, and the fingers of her right hand toyed for a time with the bangles on her left arm. Then she abruptly broke the silence. Look here, it is the right that ours should be the only market in all Bengal which allows foreign goods. What then would be the right thing to do? I asked. Order them to be cleared out. But the goods are not mine. Is not the market yours? It is much more theirs who use it for trade. Let them trade in Indian goods then. Nothing would please me better, but suppose they don't? Nonsense. How dare they be so insolent? Are you not? I am very busy this afternoon and cannot stop to argue it out, but I must refuse to tyrannize. It would not be tyranny for selfish gain, but for the sake of the country. To tyrannize for the country is to tyrannize over the country, but that I am afraid you will never understand. With this I came away. All of a sudden the world shone out for me with a fresh I seemed to feel it in my blood, that the earth had lost the weight of its earthiness, and its daily task of sustaining life no longer appeared a burden, as with a wonderful access of power it whirled through space telling its beads of days and nights. What endless work, and withal that illimitable energy of freedom! None shall check it. Oh, none can ever check it. From the depths of my being an uprush of joy, like a watersprout, sprang high to storm the skies. I repeatedly asked myself the meaning of this outburst of feeling. At first there was no intelligible answer. Then it became clear that the bond against which I had been fretting inwardly night and day had broken. To my surprise, I discovered that my mind was freed from all mistiness. I could see everything relating to Bimla as vividly pictured on a camera screen. It was palpable that she had specially dressed herself to coax that odor out of me. Till that moment I had never viewed Bimla's adornment as a thing apart from herself, but today the elaborate manner in which she had done up her hair in the English fashion made it appear a mere decoration. That which before had the mystery of her personality about it and was priceless to me, was now out to sell itself cheap. As I came away from that broken cage of bedroom, out into the golden sunlight of the open, there was the avenue of bahunias along the gravel path in front of my veranda, suffusing the sky with a rosy flush. A group of starlings beneath the tree were nostalgically chattering away. In the distance an empty bullock cart, with its nose on the ground, held up its tail aloft, one of its unharassed bullocks grazing, the other resting on the grass, its eye dropping for very comfort, while a crow on his back was pecking away at the insects on its body. I seemed to have come closer to heartbeats of the great earth in all the simplicity of its daily life. Its warm breath fell on me with perfume of bahunia blossoms, and an anthem inexpressibly sweet seemed to peal forth from this world where I, in my freedom, live in the freedom of all else. We men are knights whose quest is that freedom to which our ideals call us. She who makes for us the banner under which we fare forth is the true woman for us. We must tear away the disguise of her who weaves out nets of enchantment on whom, and know her for what she is. We must beware of clothing her in witchery of our own longings and imaginings, and thus allow her to distract us from our true quest. Today I feel that I shall win, though I have come to the gateway of the simple. I am now content to see things as they are. I have gained freedom myself. I shall allow freedom to others. In my work will be my salvation. I know that time and again my heart will ache, but now that I understand its pain in all its truth, I can disregard it. Now that I know it concerns only me, what after all can be its value? The suffering which belongs to all mankind shall be my crown. Save me, truth. Never again let me hanker after the false paradise of illusion. If I must walk alone, let me at least tread your path. Let the drumbeats of truth lead me to victory. Sandip's story 7th. Bimla sent for me that day, but for a time she could not utter a word. Her eyes kept brimming up to the verge of overflowing. I could see at once that she had been unsuccessful with Nikhil. She had been so proudly confident that she would have her own way, but I had never shared her confidence. Woman knows men well enough where he is weak, but she is quite unable to fathom him where he is strong. The fact is that man is as much as a mystery to woman as woman is to man. If that were not so, the separation of the sexes would only have been a waste of nature's energy. Ah, pride, pride! The trouble was not that necessary thing had failed of accomplishment, but that the entreaty which had cost her such a struggle to make should have been refused. What a wealth of color and movement, suggestion and deception group themselves round this me and mine in woman. That is just where her beauty lies. She is ever so much personal than man. When man was being made, the Creator was a schoolmaster, his bag full of commandments and principles. But when he came to women, he resigned his headmastership and turned artist with only his brush and paint box. When Bimla stood silently there, flushed and tearful in a broken pride, like a storm cloud laden with rain and charged with lightning lowering over the horizon, she looked so absolutely sweet that I had to go right up to her and take her by hand. It was trembling, but she did not snatch it away. "Be," said I, "we two are colleagues, for our aims are one. Let us sit down and talk it over." I led her, unresisting, to a seat. But strange, at that very point, that rush of my impetuosity suffered an unaccountable check. Just as the current of the mighty Padma, roaring on its irresistible course, all of a sudden gets turned away from the bank. It is crumbling by some trifling obstacle beneath the surface. When I pressed Bimla's hand, my nerves rang music, like tuned up strings, but the symphony stopped short at the first movement. What stood in the way? Nothing singly. It was a tangle of a multitude of things, nothing's definitely palpable, but only that accountable sense of obstruction. Anyhow, this much has become plain to me, that I cannot swear to what I really am. It is because I am such a mystery to my own mind that my attraction for myself is so strong. If once the whole of myself should become known to me, I would then fling it all away and reach beatitude. As he sat down, Bimla went ashy pale. She too must have realized what a crisis had come and gone, leaving unscathed. The comet had passed by, but the brush of its burning tail had overcome her. To help her to recover herself, I said, Obstacles there will be, but let us fight them through, and not be downheated. Is not that best, Queen? Bimla cleared her throat with a little cough, but simply to murmur, Yes, let us sketch out our plan of action. I continued as I drew a piece of paper and a pencil from my pocket. I began to make a list of workers who had joined us from Calcutta and to assign their duties to each. Bimla interrupted me before I was through, saying wearily, Leave it now. I will join you again this evening, and then she hurried away out of the room. It was evident that she was not in a state to attend anything. She must be alone with herself for a good while, perhaps lie down on her bed and have a good cry. When she left me, my intoxication began to deepen as the cloud colors grow richer after the sun is down. I felt I had let the moments slip by. What an awful coward I had been. She must have left me in sheer disgust at my qualms, and she was right. While I was tingling all over with these reflections, a servant came in and announced Amulya, one of our boys. I felt like sending him away for the time, but he stopped in before I could make up my mind. Then we fell to discussing the news of the flights, which were raging in different quarters over cloth, sugar, and salt, and the air was soon clear of all fumes of intoxication. I felt as if awakened from a dream. I leapt to my feet, feeling quite ready for the fray. Vande Matram. The news was various. Most of the traders who were tenants of Harish Kundu had come over to us. Many of Nikhil's officials were also secretly on our side, pulling the wires in our interest. The Marwadi shopkeepers were offering to pay a penalty, if only allowed to clear their present stocks. Only some Mohammedan traders were still obdurate. One of them was taking home some German-made shawls for his family. These were confiscated and burned by one of our village boys. This had given rise to trouble. We offered to buy him Indian woolen stuff in their place. But where were cheap Indian woolens to be had? We could not well indulge him in Kashmir shawls. He came and complained to Nikhil, who advised him to go to the law. Of course, Nikhil's men saw it that the trial should come to nothing, even his law agent being on our side. The point is, if we have to replace burnt foreign cloths with Indian cloth every time, and on top of that fight, though a lawsuit, where is the money to come from? And the beauty of it is that the destruction of foreign goods is increasing their demand and sending up foreigners' profit, very like what happened to fortunate shopkeeper whose chandeliers the nabob delighted in smashing, tickled by tinkle of the breaking glass. The next problem is, since there is no such thing as cheap and gaudy Indian wool stuffs, should we be rigorous in a boycott of foreign flannels and memos, or make an exception in their favor? Look here, said I, at length on the first point. We are not going to keep making presents of Indian stuff to those who have got their foreign purchases confiscated. The penalty is intended to fall on them, not on us. If they go to the law, we must retaliate by burning down their granaries. But what startles you, Amulya? It is not the prospect of a grand illumination that delights me. You must remember, this is war. If you are afraid of causing suffering, go in for love making. You will never go for this work. The second problem I solved by deciding to allow no compromise with foreign articles in any circumstances whatever. In the good old days, when the gaily colored foreign shawls were unknown, our peasantry used to manage well enough with plain cloths and quills. They must learn to do so again. They must not look as gorgeous, but this is not the time to think of looks. Most of the boatmen had been won over to refuse carry foreign goods, but the chief of them, Mirjan, was still unsubordinate. Could you not get his boat sunk? I asked our manager here. Nothing easier, sir, he replied. But what if afterwards I am held responsible? Why be so clumsy as to leave any loophole for responsibility? However, if there must be any, my shoulders will be there to bear it. Mirjan's boat was tied near the landing place after its freight had been taken over to the marketplace. There was no one on it, for the manager had arranged for some entertainment to which all had been invited. After dusk, the boat, loaded with rubbish, was hauled and set adrift. It sank in midstream. Mirjan understood the whole thing. He came to me in tears to beg for mercy. I was wrong, sir, he began. What makes you realize that all of a sudden? I sneered. He made no direct reply. The boat was worth 2,000 rupees, he said. I now see my mistake, and if excused, this will never, I will never. With which he threw himself at my feet. I asked him to come 10 days later. If only we could pay him that 2,000 rupees at once, we could buy him up body and soul. This is just the sort of man who could render us immense service, if won over. We shall never be able to make any headway unless we can lay our hands on plenty of money. As soon as Bimla came into the sitting room in the evening, I said as I rose up to receive her, Queen, everything is ready. Success is at hand, but we must have money. Money? How much money? Not so very much, but by hook or by crook we must have it. But how much? A mere 50,000 will do for the present. Bimla blenched inwardly at the figure, but tried not to show it. How could she again admit defeat? Queen, said I, you only can make the impossible possible. Indeed, you have already done so. Oh, that I could show you the extent of your achievement, then you would know it. But the time for that is not now. Now we want money. You shall have it, she said. I could see that thought of selling her jewels and occurred to her. So I said, your jewels must remain in reserve. One can never tell when they be wanted. And then as Bimla started blankly at me in silence, I went on. This money must come from your husband's treasury. Bimla was still more taken back. After a long pause, she said, but how am I to get this money? Is not his money yours as well? Ah, no, she cried. Her wounded pride hurt afresh. If not, I cried, neither is it his, but his country's, whom he has deprived of it, in her time of need. But how I have to get of it, she repeated. Get it, you shall and must. You know best how. You must get it for her to whom it's rightfully belong. Bande Matram. These are the magic words which will open the doors of his iron safe, break through the walls of his strong room, and confound the hearts of those who are disloyal to its call. Say Bande Matram. Be Bande Matram. End of recording.